March 24th of this year marks the year since the closure of Flight Sim World. A new platform on the market, spawning out of FSX Steam Edition and Flight School, this was supposed to be a part of the new era of flight simulation, coming from a well-respected simulator-focused company, with features being promised to spearhead the future of the genre. None of it however came into fruition, and just under a year from its release, the simulator was canned with an end date 6 days after its first anniversary. So what went wrong for Flight Sim World? Did it do particularly anything right? In this article, I plan to look at what Flight Sim World offered, where it excelled, and what actually led to its demise. In April 2016, Dovetail Games released Flight School onto Steam. Sold as their initial step of in-house flight simulators based on Microsoft's Enterprise Simulation Platform, or ESP, it was a quick taste of what was to come once more developments and time had passed, and the community had a chance to input their ideas into the simulator. It initially came with 3 aircraft, the Piper Cub, Piper Cherokee, and for those who pre-ordered, an exclusive Diamonds DA42 for 100 days before it was added to the main release. These aircraft were all built in collaboration with A2A and came with AccuFear the standard, allowing for some high quality listed default aircraft. The world environment was also new, with Orbex True Earth as standard. Compressed bitmap ground textures were now replaced with high quality direct draw surface tiles or DDS, and new 3D volumetric night lighting was also added. Billboarding and checkerboarding was also mostly removed thanks to better defined ground class definitions and a higher range of ground images to choose from. Flight School was a rather simple simulator and obviously brought in a lot from its predecessor, FSX. The biggest change in selling points, however, was the fact that it was now 64-bit and the very first of ESP simulators to do so. This meant while previous simulators were stuck with 4GB of memory limitations, FSC was a lot less restrictive in where you could fly and how far. P3D V4 was also still a few months away, and so there was no real alternative at this point. The UI for the new simulator also looks smart and modern, breaking away from the old clunky style that a lot of current platforms had used. There was also a number of missions thrown in too, varied with different aircraft included. I personally liked the pilot's license page, which gave you a simple logbook and counted your total in sim hours, a very smart move for those that like to keep track of their virtual flying. There was, however, no modding support or multiplayer, two things that most people see as key for a flight simulator. They were, however, promised to arrive in the next stage once it was ready to be announced. On May 3rd, 2017, Dovetail Games dropped a trailer onto their YouTube channel, showcasing a new simulator in line with their World series. Train Sim World had entered early access with CSX Heavy Haul earlier in the year, and it was now time for Flight to join in with the series. It also came with a message at the end. All owners of Flight School would receive the new game absolutely free. Dovetail are sometimes seen as a pariah to free upgrades and bonuses, especially with their Train Simulator series, a topic for another time, but see this brand new simulator only days away from release, especially looking so clean and modern, it definitely opened a number of eyes for the future of where things were going. Flight Sim World came packaged with 7 aircraft by default. These were the Piper PA-18 Super Cub with wheels and skis, the Piper PA-28 Cherokee, the Diamonds DA-40 Star, the Diamonds DA-42 Twin Star, the Piper PA-34 Seneca, the Piper PA-46 Malibu Mirage, and the Vans RV-7. 2 more aircraft also made their way to the simulator as third-party paid add-ons. These were the Piper PA-28R Arrow 3 from Just Flight, and the Curtiss P-40F Warhawk by Blue Sky FS. Soon after release, reactions to the simulator were mixed, to say the least. While some praised it for adding a new product to the market and adding a variety to the way we flew, others criticised it for the lack of add-ons that it came with, and many citing the lack of jetliners. Dovetail for months would release weekly Thursday updates, which would fix a lot of the stability issues of the platform, as well as minimise crashing, while working on the aircraft to ensure they flew as lifelike as possible, with bug fixes made throughout its life cycle. When August came, the first major upgrade to the platform came, and this was in the form of True Sky Clouds. These looked phenomenal. There were a few minor graphical glitches known as swirly clouds at the very beginning, but these were fixed by the very next day, and in my opinion, these clouds really brought life into the new platform. These were truly dynamic and volumetric, meaning billboarding was finally a thing of the past, combined with upgrades to the sky colours at the same time, which created some really fantastic visual effects. The Flight Sim Show 2017 at RF Cosford was also the first show that Flight Sim World would be featured at. Here they had a fairly large stand which attracts many users to the simulator, and also a seminar at the end of the day, which was led by the project's lead, Stefan Hood. He was very open about the future of the simulator, and a lot of opinions were changed. While many hadn't seen much from Flight Sim World beforehand, his talk certainly filled the community with hope, and especially with what was in store for 2018, with the announcements of both a career mode and a private jet coming into the game. The only thing they lacked but certainly acknowledged was someone who specialised in flight dynamics. This was very much a search that was ongoing for them. Around November 2017, a survey was then sent out to everybody who owned Flight Sim World, and included a few questions on what we'd like to see added to the platform, as well as a list of 46 items that we would order in list of importance. Soon after that, everything went quiet. On April 23rd, 2018, a press release was posted onto the Dovetail Games blog announcing the end of Flight Sim World and everything that was to be. Citing the lack of direction and falling number of users, it was decided that all developments would stop for the platform immediately, and on May 24th, the simulator would be removed from Steam and Dovetail stores entirely. Those who owned the simulator previously would keep it, but no one else would be able to purchase it thereafter. The day came and went, and with that, the once growing platform with so many ideas ahead fell into the depths of flight simming history. So what went wrong for Flight Sim World? There are a number of factors that come into play with the demise of Flight Sim World, and some certainly played bigger than others, but all combined led to its downfall. While there will certainly be a lot to talk about, what I'll do now is highlight some of the main things that I feel was the main reasons to why the platform came to such a sudden end. Soon after Dovetail Games first announced Flight Sim World, there were some talks behind closed doors about agreements between DTG and other third-party developers. Not much is known about what was said and what offerings were made, but soon after release, there was some major backlash from a number of developers that targeted Flight Sim World as a money grab scheme. This certainly led to some conflicts between Dovetail Games, Flight Sim World, the community, and payware developers that never really calmed down. This lack of third-party support meant that already, Flight Sim World was threatened with quite possibly having a very limited amount of content coming into it from other sources. This certainly pushed away a lot of users who liked their high quality content alongside their base game from a number of reputable developers. Speaking of lack of add-ons, there was also an issue in itself with the limited replayability of Flight Sim World. Most people have 2 or 3 high quality aircraft, as well as a number of smaller less advanced ones to fill their virtual hangar. Flight Sim World, however, only had a small number of GA aircraft to choose from. I remember a couple of days after release I managed to figure out a way to mod aircraft and scenery into the simulator by editing the config files directly, and so published this onto the Steam guide system as well as onto YouTube. To this day, 2 of my 4 guides are still sitting top of the 4 most popular for Flight Sim World, and the aircraft guide sitting at the top of the list. Unfortunately, however, these were not without their own flaws, as gauges and switches which are compiled in 32-bit would no longer function in 64. An SDK was also released by Dovetail as part of their Pro Mission editor, and for a year after closure, this was still maintained by the developers, meaning people could in actual fact create their own aircraft and scenery for the simulator. However, very few people did this. From its initial release, fewer and fewer people were also attracted to it, regardless of new features and updates. The Sims peak stands at 644 users, according to SteamDB, and that was from release day. In comparison, FSX Steam Edition peaks at 5,821, while X-Plane 11 housed 2,268 at one time, both of these numbers not including third-party and DVD users. This lack of interest from the community meant that Dovetail was trying to provide high-level additions and features for people that are just not even there. While many hoped that it would slowly increase in usage, this just never happened, and as a result, the only alternative was just to axe the whole thing. Many also didn't see the need for a new simulator in the first place. If you already owned FSX, why should you spend time on a new platform? With P3D V4 soon to be released, there was also not a need for Dovetail to release anything else of a lower quality, per se. Flight Sim World also had fewer features than FSX and didn't come with nearly as much content for essentially the same price. This comparison straight away drew the crowds away from the dwindling platform. I know a few people, however, who also question why Dovetail didn't base the new platform on Microsoft Flight. Flight had a much more modern engine that, while still based on ESP, was much more game oriented. The default environment, while limited, also looks so much better than its predecessor, and aircraft flew really well. Dovetail had access to this, but chose not to use it. Who knows how far they could have gone had they chose to start with it in the first place. While far from perfect, there was certainly a lot that Flight Sim World did excel at. Its biggest selling point was the fact that it was a well-established GA flight simulator with a selection of Piper and Diamond aircraft and all the navigation aids you needed to fly anywhere in the world. There was also a number of other things that went right for Dovetail Games, which I'll certainly go into detail with. Like I just mentioned, if you're looking for a simulator that specialises in a set few general aviation aircraft, then Flight Sim World was perfect for you. It held a number of Piper and Diamond models, as well as the van's RV7, VOR waypoints to navigate, and the default worlds that didn't look half bad once Orbex had done their work. I personally thoroughly enjoyed flying in and out of Elstree, which now serves as my home airport for the real-life MPPL I'm doing. By having fewer planes, it also meant that Dovetail Games could focus a lot more time perfecting each one on the platform, and doing the best they could with as many systems simulated as possible. Dovetail had also collaborated with A2A Simulations for a lot of default aircraft, providing a lot of high-level modelling and system support as well. All aircraft also came with AccuFuel by default, meaning ground effects and air would also be simulated in the aircraft. While this would never be as comprehensive as Blade Element Theory, which simulates the airflow around your aircraft's model, this upgrade in basic flight dynamics meant that you could definitely feel some life in your aircraft. The Perspex shimmer also added an extra dynamic level of flying to your aircraft, with gauges and dials shaking from engine vibrations, some visors and loose objects being forced down on heavy landings. Flying in Flight Sim World certainly added a lot more of a challenge when compared to FSX, and this was what a lot of people were looking for. By adding Simul's True Sky clouds to Flight Sim World, many also saw this as the peak of their development by really bringing the sky simulation environments to life. True Sky added realistic shader rendered clouds to the simulator with a soft approach to clipping, meaning you could now finally fly through these clouds without them disappearing in front of you, as previous simulations would use billboarding to make clouds, a group of 2D textures wrapped around one another with a central anchor points. Where a lot of simulators lacked a good weather engine in cloud simulation, Flight Sim World also excelled at this. Weather particle effects on the aircraft windshield that move dynamically with your movement, and clouds that wouldn't go amiss in the real world, with sky colours that, albeit a little exaggerated, filled the world with a lot of colour and life. They never got a chance to implement the real world weather, but on their final update, did add dynamic weather, which would change naturally over time. This certainly added an extra level of depth to the sky simulation, and for many, this was a step in the right direction. PBR or physically based rendering was also added to Flight Sim World, meaning you could also get a lot more detail out of the aircraft model and world environment based on what material they were made out of. PBR managed the reflection and up close detail depending on how light hits the objects. Bump mapping on the aircraft also excelled when it came to the level of detail you could see when looking up close at surfaces. Orbex provided their FTX Global add-on to be packaged with the simulator by default. This gave the world scenery a lot more variety when compared to FSX and P3D, with high quality textures and a lot more variety of land class styles to choose from. Different continents also had their own subtextures, meaning whenever you flew transcontinentally, although admittedly not very often since you are in a small prop plane after all, your departure and arrival landscape always looks different. With area-specific add-ons like the freeware Kahului Air Mission Pack, you also upgraded scenery in and around the Hawaiian Islands and airports, giving the simulator some focus areas that looks even better than the rest. ESP may not be the prettiest SDK to use, but Dovetail certainly managed to do a lot with it. I stand by the fact that to me, this was possibly the nicest looking flight simulator ever. The user interface was also something that Dovetail Games had free realm on, and they did a fantastic job. Created in Autodesk style form, they really modernised the look and feel of the old clunky FSX menu, and really brought it into the 21st century. Each menu is clean and easy to follow, while navigation was simple, and everything was exactly where you expected it to be. The front screen of the Flight Sim World menu was also clean, spacious and simple to follow. The only hiccup that many saw was the fact that a lot of space had been taken up by adverts, with only a very few in-game screenshots thrown in. As with Flight School, I thoroughly enjoyed the pilot profile and logbook page, which broke everything down from your latest flights to completed mission achievements, and converted your virtual flight hours into an equivalent real-world license. Setting up and creating flight plans was also as simple as can be. In the flight planner, you had the options to type in VOR locations and create your own routes and follow real-world airways, or freehand click on the map and add your own custom waypoints to follow your own lines. This was both intuitive, as it meant both beginner and experienced simulators could just click and fly. Above all, the theme song wasn't half bad either. So as it stands, it doesn't look like Dovetail Games to be releasing a brand new flight simulator for a little while, if ever. The disaster that was Flight Sim World in terms of PR and their view in the public eye led to a rather mundane period which saw both the company and the majority of flight simulators at an all-time low. The one silver lining, however, is that FSX Steam Edition, brought over to the digital platform by Dovetail, is still going strong and sees an average of 3,500 users on it daily when looking at the stats on SteamDB. In fact, despite there being no flight sim team in concrete, it still gets a few small updates and tweaks as well as bug fixes on a fairly regular basis. Checking the same stats for Flight Sim World on SteamDB also shows that surprisingly, despite over a year of inactivity, the simulator still attracts a good 25 to 30 users daily, with very few moments of downtime with 0 in-game users. There is certainly an appeal that Flight Sim World had, albeit small, that still manages to attract a handful of users to their main simulator setup. You can also look to the other two main projects run by Dovetail Games to see that it has managed to shake past this episode and move on with their development. They now put a lot more focus into Train Sim World, which has slowly increased in users and popularity as of recent, as well as the new namesake for FSW, Fishing Sim World. Other simulators have also been able to push up into this gap that was once left behind by the fall of Flight Sim World, with X-Plane 11 filling the entertainment spots that was once open, and P3DV4 giving us the 64-bit ESP platform that we were all hoping for. But remember that Dovetail Games are by no means a small company. They may not be a favourite, and some feel that they are trying to monopolise the simulator market, but when you look at the last 10 years and the amount of content they have brought into simulation as a whole, especially with the loss of Microsoft Simulator Specialists' ACES team, who are also soon to release a new train simulator which was canned with their loss in 2008, as less people being interested in simulating the real world at the turn of the century, they might have very well saved the entire simulator genre. By keeping the Flight Simulator series alive, Dovetail Games have at least managed to keep the hobby going for a large part of the community, and that is what I'm certain is what they want to be remembered for.